Imagine this. You fall in love. You feel alive, unstoppable, even as if a new world has opened inside you. Love fills your senses with electricity, sharpens your dreams, and gives you the illusion that everything finally makes sense. But what if that feeling was not the truth? What if it was an elaborate illusion, not crafted by a deceitful person, but by the unconscious forces within you? Carl Jung, one of the most profound explorers of the human psyche, did not see love through the rosy lens of fairy tales. He saw it as a powerful psychological event, but one filled with projection, illusion, and dangerous loss of self. To Jung, much of what we call falling in love is not real love at all. It is the unconscious, through mechanisms like anima and animus, orchestrating a seduction that pulls us away from our own center, tying us instead to the shadows of another. This is not a story about heartbreak. It is a story about metaphysical betrayal, about how the unconscious deceives us in the name of wholeness, and how, without awareness, we become prisoners of desires we don't even understand. In Jung's view, women were not malicious agents, trapping men, nor were men tricking women. The deception is deeper, older, and internal. Every person carries within them an anima, the inner feminine, or an animus, the inner masculine, archetypal energies formed by millions of years of human evolution. These unconscious forces project onto others, making us see in them what we secretly yearn to find in ourselves, that overwhelming feeling when you fall in love, that sense that you have finally found your missing piece. To Jung, it is largely a projection of your own unconscious ideals onto another human being, a living mirror reflecting back your forgotten dreams, your hidden fears, your abandoned hopes. You are not truly seeing the other person. You are seeing yourself distorted through the lens of unconscious need, and because it is not real, it cannot last. Sooner or later, reality pierces the veil. The charming face you adored becomes ordinary. The person you idolized becomes frustrating, confusing. What once felt transcendent becomes mundane or even suffocating. And you are left wondering where it all went wrong, when in truth it was an illusion from the start. Jung's theory of the unconscious does not paint love as pure salvation. Instead, it reveals it as one of nature's most sophisticated tricks, a mechanism designed to lead individuals toward growth through relationship, but equally capable of leading them into entrapment, suffering, and disillusionment. Nature, in Jung's perspective, doesn't care about your happiness. It cares about individuation, the painful, often brutal process of becoming a whole human being. Relationships, especially those that begin in a blaze of passion and infatuation, are arenas where the unconscious forces collide. And most tragically, the more deeply you fall without awareness, the further you stray from your true self. The more you romanticize the other person, the more you abandon your own soul. This is not a gentle theory. It's a brutal warning. Jung invites you to look behind the veil of infatuation and ask, am I loving this person, or am I loving my fantasy of them? Because once you see what Jung saw, you can no longer unsee it. You begin to realize that most love stories are not about two people seeing each other clearly. They are about two people being blinded by their projections, each mistaking the other for a savior, a dream, a solution to their inner wounds. And when the dream inevitably cracks, it feels like betrayal. But it is not the other person who has betrayed you. It is your own unconscious that has set you up, leading you into worshipping a false god, only to leave you shattered before the altar. Welcome to a world where desire wears a divine face, but hides the ruthless will of the unconscious underneath. A world where what feels like the deepest connection is often just the most exquisite form of self-deception. Carl Jung did not believe in fairy tale endings. He did not promise salvation through union with another. He believed in wholeness, but not the kind found in merging blindly with someone else. He believed that the path to true love was not through losing yourself in another, but through first reclaiming yourself from the unconscious forces that control you without your awareness. He taught that we are not here to find someone to complete us. We are here to confront the unconscious contents within ourselves that prevent us from being whole. Life, in Jung's view, is not a romantic drama with a guaranteed happy ending. It is a battlefield between consciousness and unconsciousness, between freedom and the blind forces of instinct, emotion, and ancestral patterns. Every individual is born into this struggle, and nowhere is the tension more seductive and more dangerous than in love. To fall in love without awareness is to become a slave to forces you cannot see. The stronger the passion, the stronger the grip of the unconscious. It feels transcendent, poetic, sacred, but that is the disguise. Underneath the poetry is the primal drive of the unconscious seeking to complete itself. Not for your happiness, but for its own evolutionary aims. Nature does not care if you are happy. It only cares if you fulfill the patterns woven into your being. In this theater of illusions, men and women alike become players, not out of malice, not even out of conscious choice, but because the unconscious demands it. Women, in Jung's model, are not bait, as Schopenhauer might have said, but they are powerful mirrors. They carry the projection of the male's anima, the idealized inner feminine. Men do not fall in love with real women. They fall in love with the image of their anima projected onto women. And women, likewise, project their animus onto men, falling for the idea of strength, wisdom, or rescue that may not exist in reality. In this way, love often becomes a metaphysical trap, one where you believe you are choosing freely, but you are actually being led by unseen archetypes formed long before you were born. The tragedy is not that love ends. The tragedy, Jung suggests, is that so often we begin love under false pretenses, mistaking the call of the unconscious for the voice of destiny, and by the time the projections shatter, the damage has already been done. You have already surrendered. Parts of yourself, already lost years, already paid the price. Falling in love without awareness, in Jung's view, is like stepping into a sacred ritual, blindfolded. You feel the power, the awe, the passion, but you do not see the knife until it is too late. Carl Jung understood that the greatest deceptions we face are not external, but internal. The unconscious mind is a master of disguise. It doesn't shout, it whispers, it dresses primal instincts in the robes of beauty, romance, destiny. It convinces you that your deepest desires are noble, pure, even spiritual, when in fact they are often the oldest, most primitive urges in human nature. He warned that unless we awaken to these forces, we will spend our lives being ruled by them, mistaking servitude for love and addiction for connection. Nowhere is this more visible than in the domain of romantic love. The unconscious animates the illusion with breathtaking artistry. It makes you believe you have found the one. It blinds you with longing. It drowns out the rational voice that warns you to be cautious. It floods you with chemicals, visions, and certainties. You are not just in love, you are under the spell of your own unintegrated self. The moment you fall in love without consciousness, you have already begun to lose yourself. Your dreams shift, your goals blur, your self-respect bends, all in the name of an ideal that lives more in your mind than in the reality of the person standing before you. To Jung, this was the true danger of unconscious love. It hijacks your development. It delays or even prevents your individuation, your journey toward becoming a fully realized, whole being. In loving the projection rather than the reality, you failed to confront your own shadow. You remain a partial being, chasing external validation instead of facing the terrifying, liberating task of building inner integrity. The more you idealize someone, the more you disown parts of yourself. You hand them the keys to your joy, your pain, your sense of worth, and in doing so, you place your soul in their hands without them ever asking for it. Jung saw the intense suffering that results when the projection eventually collapses. He called it psychic death, when the beloved inevitably reveals their humanity, their imperfections, their limits, the illusion shatters. And because you had invested your own sense of purpose into that illusion, you feel as though you yourself have died. But in truth, what dies is not the self. What dies is the fantasy, and in that death lies the opportunity for real rebirth, if you have the courage to take it. Jung taught that every relationship, every true encounter with another person is a confrontation with the unconscious. Either you wake up and see the other as they truly are, or you remain asleep, lost in the dream of your own projections. Real love, for Jung, does not begin with passion. It begins with awakening. It begins when you stop needing the other to complete you, when you stop projecting your missing pieces onto them, when you stop demanding salvation from another human being. It begins when you are willing to see not only the beauty, but the darkness, not only the light, but the shadow, in them and in yourself. But most people do not want real love. They want intoxication. They want the high of being chosen, of being needed, of being seen through the lens of another's fantasy. They chase this high again and again, relationship after relationship, heartbreak after heartbreak, never understanding that the very thing they seek cannot be given to them by anyone. Else, in the absence of awareness, love becomes another drug, another illusion, another cycle of elation and despair, and nature, or more precisely, the unconscious forces within nature, encourages this cycle, because it serves evolution. It serves the continuation of life. It keeps men and women locked in the eternal dance of attraction, reproduction, suffering, and growth. The unconscious does not care about your happiness. It cares about your participation in life's endless unfolding. Jung's great contribution was not just to expose this machinery, but to offer a way through it. He did not advocate renouncing love. He did not preach bitterness or cynicism. Instead, he called for consciousness. He urged men and women alike to wake up inside their own lives, to stop living through the projections cast by their unconscious, to take back their dreams, their pain, their longing, and to use them as fuel for individuation, not for addiction. To love consciously, Jung taught, is to love without illusion. It is to recognize the anima and animus projections when they arise, and to withdraw them gently. It is to resist the urge to worship the beloved as a god or goddess, and instead to see them and oneself as flawed, complex, beautiful beings. It is to accept that no one can save you. It is to accept that no one can complete you. It is to accept that true union is not merging. It is standing side by side as two sovereign souls, walking the path of life together, but never losing oneself along the way. The unconscious seeks fusion. Consciousness seeks union without fusion, and that difference is everything. If you live through your unconscious projections, you will never truly love. You will only fall again and again into the same trap, calling it fate, calling it destiny, calling it love. But if you live through your awakened self, you can finally begin to love not as a desperate seeker, but as a full, whole being. Giving without needing, sharing without losing, standing without falling. This is not an easy path. It requires sacrifice, not of yourself, but of your illusions. It demands that you let die every fantasy that promised salvation through another. It requires that you take the lonely road back into your own soul. But for those who dare, for Those who refuse to be ruled by their unconscious, there is a different kind of love waiting. A love not born of need, but of choice. A love not driven by desperation, but by depth. A love not fueled by projection, but by presence. Carl Jung knew that few would walk this path. Most would remain enchanted by the dance of the unconscious. Most would continue to chase the high of infatuation, mistaking it for transcendence. But for those few who awaken, life itself changes, no longer trapped by the endless chase, no longer enslaved by the illusions of the unconscious, no longer living as prisoners of their own unhealed wounds. Instead, they become builders of inner wholeness, of true connection, of a life lived in alignment with the deepest truths of the soul. And that, Jung believed, is the only real freedom. Not freedom from love, but freedom within love. Carl Jung saw that one of the greatest tragedies of human existence is not just that we suffer, but that we suffer, unknowingly repeating patterns without ever understanding why. Nowhere is this more evident than in the relationships we form when we are driven by unconscious forces. A man who has not confronted his own unconscious will believe he is loving, when in reality he is projecting. He will believe he is choosing, when in truth he is being led by instincts, wounds, and ancient archetypes buried deep within his psyche. He will call it destiny, fate, romance. But in Jung's understanding, it is often the unconscious using the face of another to seduce him into confronting the parts of himself he has refused to integrate. When a man falls in love under the influence of his anima projection, he does not see the woman as she is. He sees a luminous ideal, a goddess, a muse, a redeemer. He feels alive because he believes he has touched something divine, but in truth, he has touched only his own longing. Dressed in another's skin, he gives her credit for a beauty that is not truly hers, but is instead a reflection of the unlived life within himself. He invests her with the power to save him from his own inner void. This dynamic is not love, it is spiritual possession. It is the unconscious pulling the man into a drama he does not understand, but feels compelled to play out. Jung warned that this dynamic can destroy a man's individuality if he does not become conscious of it. He will sacrifice his purpose, his mission, his truth, all in the name of an illusion. He will bend his life around the object of his projection, believing he is being noble, romantic, even heroic. But what he is really doing is abandoning his own process of individuation. He is no longer moving toward his own center. He is orbiting around another person, using her as a substitute for his own wholeness. In doing so, he gives away the very thing that love is supposed to enhance, his sovereignty. Jung taught that real love could only arise between two individuals who have already confronted and integrated their unconscious. Love, in this sense, is not a merging, but a conscious meeting between two whole beings. It is not about completing each other, it is about walking together without losing oneself. Yet most relationships never reach this level because most people never reach this level within themselves. They remain caught in projection, trapped in the illusions, spun by the unconscious. They confuse need with love, dependency with devotion, fusion with connection. Jung's vision was not cynical, it was sobering. He did not tell us to renounce love, but to enter it with open eyes. He showed us that love could be one of the most powerful catalysts for growth if we are willing to see the other person as they truly are, and to see ourselves reflected in the mirror they hold up to us. But this demands immense courage. It requires that we face the disillusionment that comes when the projection fades. It asks us to stay, not for the fantasy, but for the reality. It asks us to love, not the idealized image we once clung to, but the imperfect human being before us, and to allow ourselves to be seen in the same way. Without this courage, love becomes a cycle of addiction and withdrawal. We fall in love, we project, we are disillusioned, we blame, and we move on, repeating the same story with different faces. We chase the high of the initial infatuation, the rush of feeling alive, only to crash again and again into the reality that no one can sustain the burden of being our savior. This is not because people are cruel or unworthy. It is because no one outside of ourselves can complete the work that only we can do within. The unconscious is merciless in its insistence on this truth. If you refuse to grow, it will arrange your suffering until you have no choice but to confront yourself. Relationships will fail, passions will fade, dreams will crumble. And in the rubble, if you are willing, you will find the raw materials of a real life. A life built not on illusion, but on conscious choice. A life in which love is no longer a drug, but a sacred responsibility. Jung understood that individuation is a solitary path, but it is not meant to lead to isolation. It is meant to prepare you for real connection. Only when you have claimed your own soul can you offer it freely to another. Only when you have embraced your own darkness can you accept it in someone else. Only when you have stopped needing to be saved can you truly love without conditions. He warned that if you fail to do this work, you will spend your life enslaved to the anima or animus projection, chasing phantoms, haunted by unfulfilled longings, blaming others for the emptiness that is, in truth, your own refusal to confront yourself. You will think you are being betrayed by lovers, but you are being betrayed by your own unconscious. You will think you are unlucky in love, but you are simply asleep in the face of your own patterns. The road to liberation, Jung taught, begins with reclaiming the projections. When you feel that overwhelming pull towards someone, pause. Ask yourself, what part of me have I abandoned that I'm now trying to find in them? What aspect of myself am I asking them to carry for me? Am I seeing them, or am I seeing my own unlived life reflected in their eyes? This is the work of awakening. It is painful, but it is also beautiful, because every projection reclaimed is a piece of your soul returned. Every illusion dismantled is a step closer to your true self. Every disappointment survived is a layer of fantasy peeled away, leaving something stronger, wiser, more real beneath. To love consciously is to engage in a sacred alchemy. It is to allow the fires of relationship to burn away your illusions, to transform your base desires into golden insight. It is to accept that you will never find another person who can complete you because you were never meant to be incomplete. You were meant to become whole within yourself, and then to meet others not out of need, but out of abundance. Jung's path is not for the faint-hearted. It demands that you sacrifice the sweet narcotic of unconscious romance. It requires that you endure the loneliness that comes when you refuse to settle for fantasy. It insists that you walk through the valley of your own fears, insecurities, and unmet needs. But on the other side lies something far more enduring than any fleeting passion, the possibility of a love that is true because it is free, a love not based on projection, but on perception. A love not fueled by need, but by choice. A love that does not consume your soul, but calls it forth. This, Jung believed, is the only love worth having. Anything less is not love. It is addiction dressed as poetry, slavery dressed as romance, unconsciousness dressed as destiny. The choice is always yours. To remain asleep, lost in the dreams spun by the unconscious, or to awaken, to suffer the loss of your illusions, and to claim the fierce, unshakable freedom of a life lived in truth. The unconscious will continue its dance, weaving fantasies, whispering promises, seducing you back into the old patterns. But once you have seen the truth, you can never fully go back. A part of you will always know, and that knowing, once ignited, becomes the quiet revolution that reshapes everything. To love consciously is to rebel against the oldest programming. In your being, it is to stand at the threshold of your own heart and say, I will not be ruled by illusion. I will not trade my soul for a fantasy. I will not abandon myself in the name of love. Instead, I will love with open eyes. I will love without losing myself. I will love not because I need you to save me, but because I have already saved myself. And in that love, finally, I will be free. Carl Jung knew that true freedom does not come from escaping love, but from awakening within it. He did not advocate running from relationships or rejecting emotional connection. He urged us to move beyond the illusions that most people mistake for love. He saw that unless we confront the unconscious forces that drive our attraction, we are destined to live lives ruled by projections, constantly disappointed when the fantasy fades and reality inevitably emerges. In Jung's view, every time we fall into unconscious love, we are given an opportunity. Not an opportunity to find salvation in another, but to face ourselves more honestly than before. He taught that real love is not the ecstatic fusion so often romanticized, but a deep recognition of the other as they truly are. It demands humility. The humility to see that no one can fulfill all the unspoken needs we carry. It demands courage, the courage to stand in the presence of another human being without masks, without demands, without illusions. And most of all, it demands responsibility. The responsibility to carry our own wounds, our own shadow, and not expect someone else to heal or fix what we have not yet faced ourselves. The man who awakens to this understanding stops chasing emotional highs. He stops losing himself in every glance, every whisper of promise. He no longer surrenders his soul for temporary comfort. He knows that the fire of initial passion, while beautiful, is not enough to sustain real union. Real union is built slowly, in the daylight of mutual respect, shared values, and emotional clarity. It is not constructed on the shaky foundation of unconscious projection, but on the solid ground of self-knowledge. In this way, love becomes not a trap, but a path. A path that challenges you to grow, to evolve, to confront the parts of yourself you would rather keep hidden. Through relationship, you are forced to wrestle with your own limitations, your own fears, your own capacity for betrayal and forgiveness. If you remain conscious, love becomes a crucible, a place where the false self is burned away and something more authentic is born. But this transformation can only happen if you refuse to be seduced by the fantasy, if you resist the temptation to see the other as your rescuer, if you stand firm in the knowledge that no one can complete what was never missing in the first place. Jung's vision was clear. Your partner is not your destiny. Your partner is your mirror. They reflect your unhealed wounds, your unmet needs, your deepest longings. And if you have the courage, they offer you a chance to integrate those lost parts of yourself. The danger is not in loving. The danger is in loving blindly. The tragedy is not in falling. The tragedy is in refusing to see. When you awaken inside love, you no longer fall into relationships hoping to be completed. You walk into them offering your completeness. You no longer demand salvation from the other. You recognize that the only true salvation is self-realization. You no longer measure love by how it makes you feel in the moment, but by how it calls you to become more fully yourself. Carl Jung showed us that the greatest love story is not the one we live with another. It is the one we live within ourselves. The reconciliation between the conscious mind and the unconscious forces that seek to rule it. Every relationship is merely a chapter in that larger story. Some chapters are beautiful, some are brutal, All are necessary if we choose to learn. In the end, love is not about finding the right person. It is about becoming the right person. Whole, awake, free, and once you become that person, love ceases to be a desperate search. It becomes a natural expression of your wholeness. It no longer enslaves. It empowers. It no longer demands. It gives. It no longer destroys. It builds. This is the gift Jung offers to those willing to listen. The possibility of a love not based on illusion, but on truth. A love that does not consume, but completes the journey you began long before you ever knew what love was. And so the final question is not, who will love me? It is, have I loved myself enough to recognize real love when it comes? The answer to that question will shape everything. If this message resonated with you, if at any point you recognized yourself between the lines, then consider subscribing to the channel. Not for numbers, not for vanity, but because every subscription strengthens a community of individuals committed to waking up, breaking free from illusions, and building lives rooted in truth, not fantasy. Your journey deserves companions who walk the same path. Join us and continue choosing yourself every day.